They love to say video games cause violence, despite there being no concrete evidence connecting video games to violent acts from a reputable source. But rarely do they talk about the times video games have helped people. So we made a list about them. I'm Kai, this is The Icon, and here's a list of 10 times video games have helped people. Now before we get started, please press subscribe and hit the bell next to it, or the YouTube gods will demand another sacrifice.
Number 10.
Video games help the elderly. As kids, we're told video games will rot our brain, but it turns out the exact opposite is true. We've heard about the benefits of video games for kids, but they can also help the elderly. Games like Wii Sports can help seniors improve coordination and reflexes due to the quick decision-making and action required to play. Playing video games has even been linked to increasing hippocampal gray matter in older adults, which could lower the risk of Alzheimer's disease. Games have also been shown to improve emotional well-being in the elderly, because doing what you love has a tendency to make you happy. Imagine that. So next time you're at Thanksgiving and you and your grandfather are arguing about politics, just hand him a controller and handle it in a game of Smash Brothers.
Number 9.
Depression is weak against all Pokemon types. 2016 is known by social media as being one of the worst years in the history of time. Hyperbole aside, there was a cloud of stress and tension hanging in the air. However, there were a few glorious months where people put their differences aside and joined together to play Pokemon Go. There's been numerous reports on how Pokemon Go helped people with social anxieties and depression get out of the house and socialize with others by acting as a catalyst and the ultimate icebreaker. And it's easy to see why. During the time Pokemon Go was at its peak, people would gather and talk to complete strangers like they knew each other their whole lives. It really was like living in the actual Pokemon game and bumping into random NPCs.
Number 8.
A boy saved his sister from a moose. Picture this. You and your sister are playing in the forest, as one does when they're either trying to star in their own Narnia-like adventure or end up on the back of a milk carton, when suddenly a moose confronts you. This happened in 2007 to Hans Jorgen Olsen and his sister. After being confronted with an angry moose, Hans used his 12-year-old reasoning skills and decided the best thing to do was to taunt the moose, like in World of Warcraft. In the game, taunts are used to distract enemies. So to him, this seemed like a good idea so his sister could escape. The crazy part is, it worked. While the moose was distracted with Hans, his sister got away, which left Hans alone with a moose he had been relentlessly taunting, so he decided to play dead. This also worked for some reason, and the moose got bored and left him alone. None of this should have worked, but it did, so yay.
Number 7.
Kid stops friends from playing with explosives. A group of friends in the Philippines were playing outside when they came across a container of grenades. After discovering them, one of the children tried to polish the grenades clean. This is when 12-year-old Jose Darwin Garciano recognized it as one of those tiny things that go boom from Counter-Strike. He immediately told his friends not to play with them, and they notified the authorities. I have so many questions. Why was a 12-year-old playing Counter-Strike? And how does a box of grenades just end up on the street? I'm starting to think that children naturally seek out their own self-destruction, and the only thing saving them are video games.
Number 6.
Boy learns to drive. An 11-year-old boy was driving with his grandfather when granddad just blacked out going 70 on the highway. The boy took control of the car and drove them to safety until ultimately colliding sideways with a wall. The boy contributed his quick reactions and driving skills to playing Grand Theft Auto. Though I don't condone an 11-year-old playing a video game with profanity and prostitutes, I do like that it gave him the skills to survive. But you have to ask yourself, if he ultimately crashed into a wall, was he really that good?
Number 5.
Man saves lives because of America's Army. A man from South Carolina named Paxton Galvanek witnessed an SUV flip over on the highway. He pulled one passenger out of the wreckage and found another bleeding from the hand due to his fingers being lost in the crash. Paxton made a dressing for the man to control the bleeding and helped keep him stable until an ambulance arrived. Paxton had this to say of the incident. I have received no prior medical training and can honestly say that because of the training and presentations within America's Army, I was able to help and possibly save the injured men. America's Army is a video game released as a recruitment tool for the US Army. Though there are, of course, a ton of moral questions about using a video game to entice people to join a real army, it's good to know that it helps save lives.
Number 4.
Teenager having seizure saved by online gamer. This is probably the most recent story on our list. A young woman from Texas named Dia Lathora was playing online video games with her friend 17-year-old Aiden Jackson in the UK when Aiden suddenly started to have a seizure while playing. Dia immediately called the police to help her fellow gamer. Aiden's parents, who were downstairs at the time, had no idea their son was in trouble until police showed up at their door. Dia had their address, but no contact numbers, so she called a local emergency number so she could send help.
Number 3.
Games produce better surgeons. Research points to the fact that surgeons who spent at least 3 hours a week playing video games made about 37% less mistakes in laparoscopic surgery and performed the task 27% faster than their counterparts who did not play video games. This is believed to be due to the ever-changing environment of video games that require intense focus. Another study done by the University of Texas Medical Branch at Galveston had high school and college students who played on a regular basis use virtual surgery tools. When performance with those tools was measured, the game-playing students did better than a group of residents at UTMB. Granted, it was only slightly better, but we are talking about high school students versus trained doctors. So, maybe all those Twitch stars will have promising careers as doctors one day.
Number 2.
Games help people cope with disabilities. In October of 2019, The Washington posted an article on video games and the impact they have on those who have disabilities. In it, they spoke with several people who gave their experience on how video games have helped them. Among the interviews was the common consensus that video games allow for an escape and work as a coping mechanism. The article interviewed Jackson Reese, a man who lost his arms and legs due to sepsis after already being paralyzed. In the interview, he says, "I don't think about being disabled when I'm in my gaming setup and talking to everyone. Just Jackson Pitbull Reese, just sitting here playing. And that's what makes me me." And this is something we can all relate to. There's probably not one person watching this that hasn't used a video game as some sort of coping mechanism at some point. Some of us have even experienced our online friends becoming just as real and impactful on our lives as friends and family we see in person every day. This is why charities like Able Gamers are so important. Able Gamers build special controllers and peripherals that cater to each person's specific ability, allowing gamers to once again enjoy their favorite pastime. Video games can help serve as a reminder that disabilities don't define who you are as a person.
Number 1.
Games can help recovering stroke victims. In order to recover from a stroke, patients need constant repetition of exercises. But you probably have an unused gym membership to show just how unexciting constant exercise can be. Games, however, allow patients to make repeated, calculated movements, and in some cases, with constraint-induced movement and other specific rehabilitative techniques without being bored or feeling like it's an exercise. More participation leads to an increased brain activity and muscle growth. And in 2015, a group study of stroke patients aged 29 to 78 showed that incorporating video games in stroke rehab can be very motivating. The group that played games in the study didn't recover faster than the other group that didn't, but they did report feeling more content and happier with the process. Essentially, video games take what can be a grueling process and makes it more fun. And this is only the beginning. Game therapy has been around for a few years, but still requires a lot more research and has a ton of untapped potential. Video games may have just started out as a children's toy, but they've evolved into something that has impacted millions of lives. So the next time someone tells you a video game is a waste of your time, punch them. Because you don't need that kind of negativity in your life. My name is Kai, this is The Icon, and if you like all things nerd and nerd culture, remember to like, subscribe, and sharing is caring.